Happy Election Day, everybody. That's what it looks like in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Let me first tell you this. Steve Cordasco from Mercer Advisors telling me about a new benefit to their already comprehensive wealth management offerings. It's called Chapter. It's Mercer Advisors' new Medicare support partner that can help you make proper Medicare decisions, including navigating the difficult filing process and selecting the right plan for you. Chapter, a team of licensed experts who can assist in understanding 24,000 coverage options at no cost to you. They recently helped a client who owns a family business. They were able to help that individual save money with just 25 minutes worth of an evaluation. Call 855-558-3500. Learn how you can save. 855-558-3500. Cordasco Financial Network, a trade name owned by Mercer Global Advisors, an SEC registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Andrew Garrett Inc., which is not affiliated with Cordasco Financial Network or Mercer Advisors. More information about Chapter and Mercer strategic partners can be found in Mercer Advisors Form ADV 24. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Yesterday, 14,996 votes were cast. I'm saying, of course, couldn't we have gotten to 15,000? But of course, if it were right at 15,000, then I would be suspicious of the result. Aha. 14,996 responded to this. Who benefits more from Trump coining the nickname DeSanctimonious? 66.76% said DeSantis benefits from the nickname because of the blowback toward Trump. Like, how could he do that? Cheap shot in the waning days or hours of the midterm. We should be focused on the midterm, say Republicans, and electing Republicans and conservatives. A third said no, Donald Trump benefits. I must say that as I was clicking around last night, I noticed that Trump was able to get cable outlets that no longer cover him in real time to dip in last night in Ohio because he floated the idea through Axios, through Jonathan Swan, that he might actually announce last night. But he didn't announce last night, and now the save the date is a week from today, November 15, which is when he's presumed to make it official. We didn't know if we could do this at Smerconish.com, but we can and we did. We didn't know if we could have a multi-part survey question on the new website because, frankly, we weren't sure if the new site could accommodate it, but it does, and this is great. When all is said and done, there are 4 key battleground states in the U.S. Senate races. Pennsylvania with Fetterman and Oz, Georgia with Walker and Warnock, Arizona with Masters and Kelly, Nevada with Laxalt and Cortez Masto. And you today can go to the website at Smerconish.com and pick winners. Again, this is predict. Not as if you're voting and who do you want, but who do you think is going to win in these 4 states? So go do it. Cast your ballot. We'll see how well you do in terms of comparing tomorrow to the final outcome. I'm looking forward to doing that with the predicted, the wagering market as well. Couple of last minute considerations. Was it an omen this morning? A total lunar eclipse, blood red? I mean, it is a hell of a coincidence, isn't it? On a day that many presume there's going to be a red wave. I was coming out of Wawa at, in fact, I have my proof in my hand. I was coming out of Wawa at 5:15 a.m. I saw a red sky. Dan was walking his dog. He thinks he saw it. The partial eclipse began at 4:09 a.m. Eastern time. To the naked eye, they say it looked like a bite being taken out of the moon. I didn't see that, but I did see a lot of redness for what it's worth. Final prognostications relative to the midterm election. Larry Sabato, for whom I have a lot of respect, the crystal ball at the University of Virginia, Sabato's crystal ball, final predictions relative to what happens today. He says the following. Final Senate pick, 51-49. The predicted market yesterday was 52-48 as of yesterday. I didn't look this morning. Or, according to Sabato, a net Republican gain of 1 seat. Final House pick, 237-198 Republican. That would be a net gain of 24. Now, remember, since World War II, the model is 26-2. for the party outside the White House. 26-seat gain by the party outside the White House. Many have thought that because of inflation at a 40-year high, the president's approval rating being in the low 40s, that it would exceed 26, which is the historic model. David Wasserman, when he was on recently from the Cook Political Report, I think he was here last Friday, said he was taking the under 26. So Sabato, the crystal ball at UVA, they also are taking the under at 24. The projected gubernatorial picture, 29-21 Republican, or a net Republican gain of 1. I have to say, for all the talk about the viability of the Republican Party nationally, although we haven't heard it this cycle, on a state level, state legislatures and gubernatorial mansions, the GOP is doing just fine. Now, you might be interested to know, where were the final swings in Sabato's prognostications? In the Senate, they moved Georgia from a toss-up, meaning between Warnock and Walker, to a lean Republican. They moved the Masters Cortez Masto race in Nevada, Laxalt Cortez Masto in Nevada from a toss-up to a lean Democratic. And Pennsylvania, the open Pat Toomey seat, Larry Sabato's crystal ball moved from lean Democratic, Fetterman, to lean Republican, Oz. And then there are a number of House races. I won't go through them all, but the movement has all been toward the GOP in the end. So that's what Larry Sabato is saying at the UVA's Center for Politics, the crystal ball. What was the final Nate Silver analysis? Nate Silver reporting at 5:38. By the way, we linked this at Smerconish.com. You can go right to Larry Sabato through my website, right to Nate Silver through my website. Silver says this: when we launched our midterm forecast on June 30, Republicans had a 53% chance of taking over the Senate from Democrats, an 87% chance of taking over the House. We could almost have turned our servers off and let that forecast stand. Today, in our final forecast of the cycle, Republicans have a 59% chance of winning the Senate, 84% chance of winning the House. So it's gone up slightly in the last couple of days. It was 53, it was 54, it was 55, 59%. 59%. Now, if you're saying, hey, I don't want to stay up all night, give me something to look forward to so that I can get a sign of how it's going, courtesy of Mike Allen, I offer you the following. The best early bellwether, the race between Representative Abigail Spanberger and Republican Yesli Vega in the DC exurbs of Virginia, will offer an early signal of the national political mood. It's a pragmatic Democrat and a former CIA case officer. Spanberger condemned her party's left wing early on. Vega, who's Latina, is on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, is a former sheriff's hostage negotiator. Added benefit: Virginia polls close early, 7 p.m., and the state counts quickly. So the congressional race in Virginia between Spanberger and Vega, an early sign of what's going to unfold tonight. All eyes. This might be the last time you hear me say this. You might not hear me say it again, but all eyes are on Pennsylvania. And there's an 11th hour issue in Pennsylvania that I've flagged for you. And I just want to make it sort of the final thing you think about in this election. The Philadelphia Inquirer today has on the front cover, midterm races now up to voters, with photographs of the gubernatorial candidates and the U.S. Senate candidates. There's also a story from Below the Fold from the Washington Post, which is headlined GOP targeting mail ballots in swing states. It says the following: Republican officials and candidates in at least 3 battleground states are pushing to disqualify thousands of mail ballots after urging their own supporters to vote on Election Day in what critics are calling concerted attempts at partisan voter suppression. And then it goes on to talk about Pennsylvania being at the top of that list. I have a video. It's just 2.5 minutes long. It's on my YouTube page and in all of my social media, that was recorded about a week or 10 days ago when I was about to fill out my Pennsylvania mail-in ballot. And I said to TC in the normal radio studio, I had it on my console, and I said, hey, you know what? Come over and shoot this video so that I can explain the Pennsylvania ballot and some of the controversies about it. The issue being, is this a matter of voter integrity or voter suppression? Is this integrity, or is this, as Lawrence Tribe puts it in the LA Times today, which I linked to at Smerconish.com, is this a technicality? We've got the Fetterman versus Oz race. Of course, it's very close, according to the polling, a virtual toss-up. Remember this now, Oz won his three-way primary by only 951 votes. Okay. And I remember thinking that given the trajectory of Dave McCormick from election day through the following couple of days, that he was going to catch and maybe surpass Oz. Obviously, he didn't. Like the rest of the country, Pennsylvania voters are now getting used to voting by mail, but still disproportionately, Democrats vote by mail, not Republicans. I think 70% of the ballots requested in Pennsylvania for mail voting were from D's and not from R's or not from I's. We didn't have this luxury of voting by mail until recently, because you used to need to have cause to vote absentee in Pennsylvania, but those days are now over. Okay. There's continued controversy as to whether to count mail ballots that are not in strict compliance with the law. And the short version is that the state Supreme Court has agreed with the position taken by the RNC that election officials should not count ballots on which the voter neglected to put the date on the outside envelope, even when it arrived before Election Day. In my video, you can see this. So on the back of the envelope, the last thing you're supposed to do is to sign and date the exterior envelope. You get a ballot, you fill out the ballot. You tuck the ballot inside an envelope that is a secrecy or security envelope, because it doesn't contain your name nor anything else that would identify you. So you tuck that now in an outer envelope. Again, watch it on my video. And then you sign and you date it. Okay? So, what does the law require? The law requires that you put your ballot inside the secrecy envelope, the security envelope. You then put that in the mailing envelope, and then you sign and date the back of the outside envelope. The date that you are supposed to fill out is the date, this makes logical sense, the date on which you filled out the ballot. Okay? Again, not to be confused with the security envelope, which requires no signature and no signing. It used to be that they would accept any date. So if I signed my name and mistakenly put down my birth date in 1962, obviously I didn't fill out a ballot in Fetterman versus Oz and Mastriano versus Josh Shapiro in 1962, but they would have accepted it. They would have accepted it. If someone left the line blank, they would have rejected it, even if the envelope arrived by Election Day. So clearly they had filled it out in time, and they filled it out after receiving it. So on its surface, it would seem legit, and yet it would get bounced. And mine, with an erroneous date, a 60-year-old date, would have been accepted. Do you get, the controversy here and how this could happen? It's been the source of ongoing litigation, human factors. Many people are not following instructions. There are thousands of ballots so affected. And Pennsylvania is inconsistent. In some counties, including Philadelphia, they are letting people know that there was a problem with their ballot and they can cure it. And in others, they're not. And as I say, the Supreme Court has said, don't count it unless it's got a date now that falls within the parameters of when those ballots were sent out. And if you think that this is only the stuff of a low information voter, like who could make a mistake like this? Oh, I direct you to the Philadelphia Inquirer today, another story that we link to at Smerconish.com. Those who did not correctly follow directions include Brian Roberts, like citizen number one of Philadelphia, the CEO of Comcast. What did he do? He submitted a naked ballot, one that is missing the inner secrecy envelope and thus has to be rejected. Now, he was notified and he went over and he fixed it. It also means, by the way, that somebody who got his envelope, if they could decipher his signature on the outside of it, they could say, oh, Brian Roberts, and they open it up, and instead of there being a security envelope where they wouldn't know how he voted, now his ballot was sitting there. From the Philadelphia Inquirer today, the Philadelphia voters who submitted flawed mail ballots include the CEO of Comcast, a former city council member now running for mayor, and a high-profile lawyer who last year ran for district attorney. So pretty sophisticated people are making these mistakes because they're busy, we're not accustomed to it, and the question becomes, what are you going to do with those ballots? And if it all is decided by a margin, if the Fetterman-Oz race is decided by a margin that is akin to Oz versus Kathy Barnett and Dave McCormick, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. And the courts, it's still being litigated. The courts have been inconsistent in terms of what has been the practice from the Inquirer. They say this: a half dozen state and federal courts at every level, from local county courts to U.S. Supreme Court, have issued conflicting rulings in response to court challenges by groups on both sides of the political divide. This is not a settled issue if this race is close. And the last thing that I would say about this is, you know who could have fixed it? You know who could clean up this mess and fix it but hasn't? The Pennsylvania State Legislature. I don't think they want to fix it. I think they like the ambiguity in it. So that is the big lurking story in Pennsylvania, which could have real significance. Of course, if it ends up being a 52-48 night or a 51-49 night for the GOP, then a little bit less so, but we'll see. We'll see. Finally, in terms of election advice, you can take or leave this. I just thought it was interesting, totally in contrast to Michael Jordan wanting to sell Nikes to Republicans and Democrats. Elon Musk: I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, he says. To independent-minded voters, says Musk, shared power curbs the worst excesses of both parties. Therefore, I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, given that the presidency is Democratic. I mean, I get it, right? You want to hold in the excesses. On the other hand, nothing gets done. I mean, nothing ever gets done. For better or worse, the Brits with a parliamentary system empower a party like, okay, here, go take your shot. It's almost like the logic of a patronage system versus a civil service system. You know, before we had civil service, we had patronage. We had Tammany Hall. And the party controlled all the delivery of services and all the jobs. And theoretically, if they weren't getting the job done, then you voted them all out. And then the new broom could come in and sweep clean and really try and re-engineer government. I don't know that it worked that way in the abstract, but that's what I would say to Elon Musk. To Musk, I would say, but if all of a sudden we wake up tomorrow and it's a Biden White House, a Mitch McConnell Senate, and a Kevin McCarthy House, what's going to get done? Probably nothing for the next 2 years until the next presidential election. So it's complicated. And speaking of the next presidential election, as I told you, in Vidalia, Ohio, at a rally last night, Trump said it's going to be November 15. That's the save the date. So as soon as we count the ballots from this one, we will be off to the races with the next one. The brightest news of all, and I don't even think that they're requiring that you have proof of having voted, although you ought to go vote today. Krispy Kreme is giving everyone a free glazed donut. Will you do me a favor? When you go into Krispy Kreme today, say, I'm here for the honey dipped Can I have a free honey dip donut, please? And just see if they know what you're talking about. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful election day. Go vote. Matters not to me for whom you're voting. It matters to me, as I say to my kids, that you go vote. See ya.